Let me just introduce our speakers. First, we have Sister Vita. Sister Vita has an extensive experience in the corporate world, over 20 years of sales and marketing experience in the infocom industry. And her philosophy of life is to pay it forward. And she's someone with a very big heart, mentoring and coaching young people and supporting Firefly Mission in numerous humanitarian projects locally as well as overseas. So thanks, Sister Bita, for joining us today. Next, we have Brother Chong. Okay, so Brother Chong, he's also a doctor. He's founder and CEO of NWC Longevity Practice Private Limited. So it's a social enterprise startup that provides consultancy and clinical services as it builds a self and mutual care community. So Brother Chong is also an experienced meditator who studies Dhamma under Sayale Dipankara. And he's also the VP of Chankala Meditation Center and Happy Village Society. So just a sharing on my end. I've met Brother Chong once, twice. So once is in Singapore Buddhist Mission. It was a Dhamma sharing session, and and I asked him a question about purpose in life. All right, there's many questions that I have that comes to me. What is the purpose of life? Is it about having kids? Is it about getting married? And what is the purpose of life? So Brother Chong shared about a little bit about non-self and also how to be a better human. So it really struck me in that angle on how can I be a better human, a better partner, a better son, a better grandson, and overall, how can I be better? So he also inspired me to go vegetarian when he shared about eating meditation. So it was this special thing where he shared. So we were sharing about what have we eaten for lunch, and he shared what is my experience, and I told him that the fish soup was very xian tian. And yes, he told me, there was a little greed in that xian tian, when I shared that it's very tasty and all that. So it really gives me a mind of shift, and I'd just like to share it with everybody here. And actually that inspired me to become a vegetarian, to be better at controlling all my impulse and my eating habits and all that greed and sensual pleasures. So yes, thank you, Brother Chong, for that. And lastly, we have our very special and speaker, moderator, Jessica. So Jessica is an associate director at Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia. So it's a Temasek venture capitalist arm. So they invest in early stage startups across Southeast Asia. So Jessica is also previously an investor at Silicon Valley, a base founders X Ventures and 500 startups. So she is an avid meditator and has attended annual silent meditation retreats since the age of 14. Yeah. Well done, Jessica. And let us all give a warm welcome, to our speakers and moderator. And Jessica, I'll pass the stage over to you.
Thanks, Brother Pimmel. Can everyone hear me? Okay, sounds good. Actually, I would like to just request again, if convenient, for everyone to turn on their video cameras. It's a lot more encouraging on the part of the moderator and the speaker when we know that people are following, people are actually understanding and appreciating whatever we're trying to share here. Without further ado, sadhu to Sister Bita and Brother Chong for sharing your very precious Saturday morning with us. So when Sister Amy asked, if I would help with moderating the session, I was extremely grateful because this topic is something that's very close to heart. with respect to how I met my Dharma teacher. As I was sharing with, as with the speakers previously, I deeply subscribe to, the idea of you're the average of the five you hang out with the most. And a lot of people react to these five people that they're surrounded with, be it their family, their parents, their colleagues at work, their friends and whatnot. But personally, I try to curate, the five seeds of these five people that end up, shaping my life over time. And these five people don't have to be static necessarily. They change as we age, as we mature as individuals. And sometimes, interestingly, I try to make it a point that at least one of these seeds, is actually someone of a spiritual teacher, or someone who is steeped in Dhamma. So in the past, before COVID, maybe it was more of a face-to-face kind of session with a monk or experienced meditator. But of late, it's been more of a Spotify sort of playlist sort of mode, with very on-demand, meditation practice and whatnot. So actually, on that note, a question to the speakers here today is, how would you, qualify and define a Dharma teacher? So what form of Dharma teacher, you have had in your lives? Is it a passive, one-way, two-way? It could be in the form of books and whatnot. It could even be, the Sangha community, or even people who are not, Dharma speakers in that sense. Would be great to hear who and in what form these people have benefited your lives, and perhaps even a story to share. So maybe we could start with Brother Waicho for this question.
So the question is, what qualifies, who is a Dhamma teacher, right? So what is the Dhamma? Dhamma is really the phenomenon of nature, both material and mental. And we can learn so much as long as the mind is a learner's mind, always humble and all that. So in that sense, all beings are like our teachers. But of course, I know we are not talking in this sense. We want to be a bit more specific. I must say that I have benefited a lot from friends whom only later I realized that they are actually my teacher in the Dhamma, in the Buddhist teachings in particular. So in the medical school, I attended this gathering of Buddhist medical students. So people like Dr. Kenneth Pan, Dr. Tan Ki Guan, the late Dr. Tan Ki Guan, Ho Keng Tai, I learned so much from them. And they're also a friend, also like a mentor through my medical school years. Then also just before that, I read Chief Monk of Malaysia, K. Sri Dhammananda, the late chief. I haven't got the good fortune to meet him. I learned so much from his little book that didn't talk about the Buddha or the Dhamma, but really gave me gave me confidence in dealing with worries and difficulties as I was about to prepare for my MS. So K. Sri Dhammananda. So I must say that some teachers actually touch you through their writings, not in person. And of course, over the years, we have heard many Buddhist teachers like Bhante Dhammika, in my medical school days, went to the lecture room and he was such a charismatic speaker. Then, of course, Yeshe Lama Yeshe, and Amcho Rinpoche, and many others, Mahayana monks also, Xing Yun Da Shi, and Xue Yang Fa Shi went with him to do community work. So learn a lot from their deeds. So sometimes the Dhamma teacher need not be the one teaching you the Dhamma or meditation practice, but it's through the deeds that I learn many things. Now I actually put them under the characteristic of the department of character building, which is a very important dimension of Dhamma practice as well. We call it parami. Of course, also accumulating merits, which is very important. All our good conditions don't come from nothing, you know, because of our marriage from the past. Then, but my meditation, but my Dhamma understanding and breakthrough really started when I attended a retreat by Reverend Kai En. Kai En Fa Shi is a Mahayana monk from Bincheng, from Penang, but he was a Theravada monk in Pa'ao Forest. So he was teaching Pa'ao method, and I realized that it was very aligned with what Kenneth and Kiguan has been teaching us since medical school days, because they were just teaching directly from Visuddhimagga, and it was all very technical. But when I learned from Kai En Fa Shi, it became alive. And that short retreat opened my eyes to what the Buddha really meant in the Dhamma. By then, I've been even sharing the Dhamma already, you know, reading and studying the Majjhima Nikaya, the Digha Nikaya. But only after the retreat, I realized that the Buddha's teachings is deeper than what you read in the scriptures. It's much deeper than that. And then from Kai En Fa Shi, somehow I also learned from Bande Vajira at Batu Pahat. He's also passed on already, but also when I was there, I realized that he was also a disciple of Pa'ao Sayadaw. So this Pa'ao Sayadaw was very interesting, very mysterious until end of the year 2001. I was asked by Mr. Hao Buddhist Library to take care of a very sick monk from Myanmar, transferring from an ICU in Taiwan, and he was staying in Guan Yin Shan at Bukit Merah, and it happened to be Pa'ao Sayadaw. So me and Dr. Lee Chung Sing, we was like his doctors, and at that time we were family physician, but very passionate about geriatric care. So we approached him like a geriatric case, and but his disciples around him were very inspiring. They were very mindful, very there's an air around them that was really inspiring. So this first impression was important. And also there are two nuns who were kneeling at the side when Sayadaw was lying on the bed. And one of them was Siale Dipankara, another one was Siale Susila. And subsequently, I went to Pa'ao Forest for my first retreat in year 2001. And I had a long chat with Siale Dipankara and realized that, hey, this is the practice. So subsequently, I followed Siale. And so since 2006, the first 6 months retreat in Brahma Vihari until now. And so Siale became like a teacher for me in the practice of meditation, as well as how to behave in day-to-day life within a retreat. But of course, outside a retreat, I had to apply what I learned. So, and along the way, I learned from so many of you, you know, like Amy, Zheming, Bita, Chang, you know, Ting, all of you. So all of you are my teachers too.
Sadhu. So it seems like a very interesting blend of, you know, certain sets of teachers that maybe are more focused or their style is more in technical teaching. And then there are some others that are more into day-to-day practice. It seems like a very, you know, nice mix and blended sense, especially for very different kind of purposes from day-to-day basis. What about you, Sister Vita? I was wondering, you know, how would you define a Dharma teacher and like, you know, what are some memorable sort of like instances that, you know, Dharma really helped you in that sense?
Thank you so much, Sister Jessica. First, before I begin, I just want to acknowledge and express my anumodana to all the volunteers, managers here, the team here from SBM and BYN. In case you're not aware, today is Volunteer Management Day. So happy Volunteers Management Day to all of you. I know the love and passion of being a volunteer manager. It's never easy, and a lot of people think it's a thankless job. However, do not think of it as a job, but take it as if it is your own nurturing. And because of that, you know, this wonderful group of people can be gathering here. So rejoice in this merits that you accrued today. Thanks very much for sharing, Brother Wai Chong. I thought I just got a few points to add in how the role of the Dharma teacher in my life. Like many of you and like Brother Wai Chong will come through a full circle. And with Sister Jessica, she says, well, who are the 5 seats? You know, I thought about that. I said, actually, who are the 5 seats in my life? They are not immediate seats. I'd say that one of the first Sangha that I've had in my life would be my family. Without my mom, without having an altar in the house, showing me that, there is such a thing called faith. At a point in time when you were growing out, whether the faith is a real faith or blind faith, you don't know, but it became a habit. So I'm very grateful for my family, for showing me that there is a development in life that you need to cultivate. And as I grew up to, some of you would know that I'm a mother of two. My adult, no longer teenager, my adult children now, Brian and Tara, will forever be my teachers. They will forever be my Sangha. My sister Jackie being here, she's here because she's supporting Pimo, her son, and that will be the love of the mother as well, but the love of a mother, looking at how the child is growing up and also how the child is living. The nurturing. It's difficult as a parent, but it is also the way, if I may call it, our legacy and our heritage with our children. In school, I grew up in a Catholic school. I'm actually purist, a pure IJ girl. For those of you who followed my Facebook, you know that truer and truer, 100 friends I have outside there, 99 of them are Christians. I'm always the odd one out. So very fortunate with the MOE education, whereby I was the only one in the convent who offered Buddhist studies during our O levels. So if any one of you were in my generation, you would know that religious studies at that point in time was something that you had to take. But I was very happy to take on my Buddhist book and leave the convent for 2 periods and to go into another school to do my Buddhist studies. So that unwittingly, I began my journey of theoretical Buddhism. And as I emerged in life, I'm very thankful that there's another group of Sangha that appeared, and that would be my co-workers, my colleagues, and that's really a new venture into career making. And they taught me a lot. They also honed me a lot in my skills. But this is where the place that I rest right now would be my Sangha teachers. And these are my spiritual Sangha teachers from the Mahayana, from the Theravada to the Vajrayana. I categorize them as 3 areas. Number 1, my birth teachers, whom I'm grateful to, would be my mother, my father, and of course, my relatives. My nurturing teachers throughout my upbringing and throughout my close to half a decade of life. And they have been indelible stewards with me. Thirdly, the teachers that I pay homage to, that I seek refuge with in my spiritual development. And these are right now the pool of forest sanghas that I've come to be very close to, and forever very grateful to one of the greatest teachers in this generation, which is Luang Por Sumedho, right? And one saying Luang Por Sumedho left me before he left Singapore was, go beyond inspiration. Just like many of you, many of us who come close to the energy of a pop star, right? Your hair, the hair in your hands will stand, your heart rate will raise, you feel very heated, you feel very excited and energized. And all you want to do is just jump on the next thing that he touches, be near him, and etc. But it is very great. But as I lay in front and put my palms in Anjali and knelt in front of Luang Por and expressed my anumodana and gratefulness for the teachings that he's inspired many of us in his last 50, 60 years of teachings. He says, sadhu, But if there's one teaching I'd like to live with you, Bita, it is go beyond inspiration. And that teaching is patipada. And the patipada in the Forest Sangha term, it is really about the teaching of the practice, the nurturing of the practice. So in short, Sister Jessica, how I found my Dharma teacher, it's come a full circle. And the role of the Sangha to me right now, it is very deep. It is more than a fanaticism fever, but it's become, if I may say, the bloodstream of how my organs and my heart rate beats.
Thank you, Sister Vita, for that kind sharing. Actually, what you brought up about, inspiration, trying to transcend inspiration is very powerful. It actually reminded me of what is in your background right now, something so bright, something so all powerful like the sun. And a lot of people choose to admire it from afar rather than go forward to investigate it, to understand it, and to go beyond just the scenic beauty, but to become, sort of like an embodiment of the Buddhist teachings. So actually on that note, Brother Wai Chong, this question, would love to hear your thoughts on it. How do people transcend, beyond just, teachings that they learn in retreat centers? How do we sort of embody these values over time? How do we have that discipline and that clarity, when life hits us? It could be something really, really simple, like, oh, your kid just, broke a vase, or your dog just pooed in the wrong part of your house. How do you sort of bring what you've learned in that very, sort of serene environment in the retreat center? How do you bring that serenity, that clarity, that mindfulness with you outside, once you leave the gates of the retreat center, and actually go bringing that into the home, bring that into practice, and be that better human being, that you spoke to Pimal about. Be that better son, be that better daughter, be that better husband, teacher, father, and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's very important and it's a very good question. It's related to your opening statement about us being the average of the 5 people that we hang out with. So, there are many things I can think of, but really the most important factor is who you mix with. So it's like, so for me, I was fortunate to have the medical Dharma circle that every Monday will gather in a tutorial room in NUS, and so despite the whole week of very busy work in the wards, in the clinics, and all sorts of maybe intra organizational politics, maybe not so political in healthcare, but there are lots of defilements everywhere. Of course, none of us is perfect, but every time you can meet with some people who talk about the Dhamma, the Buddha, the Sangha, there is that there's a spring of wholesomeness. That was really nice. Of course, over the years, Chakavala Meditation Center, and now for the last 20 years or so, there's another group. Now we call ourselves the Happy Village. Dr. Ang Bing Chu and her friends, the students, Dr. Ang, also my teacher, she's got that very captivating personality around her. So all of us gather around her in her house every Wednesday. So these 3 groups are like my anchor of my spiritual life. So with that as an anchor, then the rest seems to be easier. Apart from the spiritual friendship, there's also certain discipline that we need to have, some kind of guidance, some kind of guiding rules, and the of course the 5 precepts. But like there's one stage I have a piggy bank on my altar. I will just put whatever spare coins I have in it. So that's also like a ritual for me. Every morning I will dana to Tzu Chi, to Firefly Mission. I have an altar at home, even when I was staying with my mom in my bedroom. So the altar, like a reminder, I'll pay respect, I'll offer incense and light morning and evening. So those rituals are very helpful to at least have a kind of sanctuary in the mind. And yeah, and also some kind of practice. There was one stage I was really inspired. I mean, still inspired, but that was very inspired. Then 2004, after a retreat, I made a decision to have 1 hour sitting meditation every day. So, except for a day when my father passed away, I sat like 1 hour every day for years until 2012, from 2004. But since then, I also doing like so that was helpful. And when I met Pao Siador, I sort of make a determination to go for a 1 month retreat every year. So I sort of stick to it. So, and then after Brahma Vihari 6 months, I made a determination to go for 2 months every year. So that was also like that. I think it's all this determination that was very helpful. And the people you mix with, you won't feel weird, making that kind of determination, sitting an hour a day, going for 2 months retreat every year, don't drink, keeping the precepts. I mean, if you hang around certain group of people, you find really out of place. But if you hang around the kind of people who are similarly sort of have the similar values as you, I think that is that really helps. I think that is the foundation. But the making of determination and keeping our own promise, I think, was really important. It gives our practice some kind of energy. Then reading, of course, is important. Attending Dhamma talks, not just for the inspiration. Of course, you need to be inspired because faith is frequently the beginning of things, right? Even the five faculties begin with faith. Faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, then wisdom. But faith alone is not enough. You need to put it into practice. So after the Dhamma talks, you need to put into practice. And reading the scriptures, studying in details, being invited for Dhamma talks is actually very lucky of me. I mean, it's very hard for me to just read all the thick books, But if you have to give a talk, then you do your research, then you learn. And so all those people who ask me to give Dhamma talks, I must thank you for being a catalyst for my learning. So yeah, learning is important. Studying not just the scriptures, but also the commentary text, the Abhidhamma, and also different interpretation from different teachers through the centuries, including the modern teachers. I think these are important. And yeah, so these are how I translated Dhamma teachings into day-to-day life, spiritual fellowship as the most important anchor.
Thank you, Brother Waichung, for your sharing. Really like your point on, the whole sanctuary in the mind. It goes to say so much about how we are the ones in control of our reaction when we cannot control, external environments. And this leads me to actually the next question I had, which is, I hear from Sister Amy that, a lot of the participants here today are actually young working professionals. And a lot of people upon graduation realized, that the corporate world isn't as pretty and a nice place as they thought so. In fact, it's usually a lot more worse. And a lot of these peoples are, tend not to be 100, Buddhist or very serious practitioners in that sense. And so from a values alignment perspective, it's usually, we're not playing by the same rules and we're not sharing the same principles in which, we choose to conduct ourselves in the work environment. And therefore the rise of cutthroat cultures, dog eat dog world and whatnot. So my question actually, I would love to hear Sister Vita's thought on this, since you've spent a lot of years and been, doing very well in the corporate world. Just wanted to, on behalf of all the young working adults here, sort of understand, when there is sort of a dissonance, a conundrum between, on one hand, you're sort of on the bottom of the food chain. You don't have that much leverage to say no. You don't have that much ability to chart, your own way forward in the corporate world. And then on the other hand, you don't want to compromise on the values that you've learned as a Buddhist. Sort of, how do we navigate that kind of setting? Do we really have a choice? Is choice an illusion? or does making a choice get better with time, with age, with hierarchy, with authority? And so, in other words, how negotiable are the sort of values we learn from Buddhist practice, and how do we navigate such a complex environment?
That's a very tough question, Sister Jessica. Coming out from the corporate world, I haven't come out from the corporate world yet. I'm still very much a warrior, corporate warrior. I must acknowledge that to everyone that whoever that you are right now, if you are working as an adult, understand it's not easy. It will never be easy. Nothing comes out to be easy at all. But just a few things I've learned along my journey. I thought that it may be worthy to share from the pitfalls that I come across. I've risen from the food chain, is what Sister Jessica said. From really an executive all the way up to director, VP, and then running a whole ship on my own. But at the end of the day, there were several episodes in life that made me sit back and reflect upon my own corporate career. And I must say that for many of you who've come close to the Dharma at such an early age, this is your treasure. This is really your resource. And because that was really very much my resource, where you face with difficulties at work, with your career, with your coworker, where do you fall back? And like what Brother Chong says, do you have an inner circle, a community that you could share and discuss similar challenges with, and at the same time find some solutions or techniques or helpfulness in order to guide you out from your difficulty. So I'll say that the number one pitfall is don't give up on your practice of the Dharma. Don't give that up, even though you may not see immediate returns the way that you want. You may not know, actually, these returns are very subtle. This accumulation are very subtle. But continue to plant the seed, like what Brother Chong said, continue to put that 10-cent coin, 5-cent coin into a piggy bank and accumulate that spiritual bank. Because till the day that you want it the most, it will come. And it will come perhaps in many forms. And one form you will be surrounded by Kalyanamittas even in your spiritual world, even in your corporate world. They will be your mentors and your guide. So that's one. Two, it's about value systems. So in mid-career, I kind of asked myself a question: what's the meaning of job? What's the meaning of this whole livelihood that I had? So I was at a turning point in my career, and I turned around looking at my then he was maybe 7-year-old boy, my son, and I had been in the career for 10 years. I turned around in the car and I asked him, boy, I'm gonna quit my job. And he said to me, Mom, will that make you happy? If it makes you happy, just do it. And that was amazing encouragement. He was only a very young primary school boy, and he said to me, one of the first lessons I need to learn in my job is, are you happy? If you're happy doing it, just do it. And at that point in time, as a young career woman, what do you associate happiness in your career with? Is it promotion? Is it a bigger paycheck? Is it more recognition? So I sat down and analyzed that for myself. This is when I began on my journey on my volunteer services. As some of you may know that I volunteer for Firefly as well as for actually this unknown group called the My Tree Pals. The Maitri Pals is a group of Buddhist practitioners who give their all to HIV patients in Singapore as patient care, as a bedside support, as well as end-of-life support. In Maitri Pal, I met one young girl. She's actually quite well known now because she's come out herself. But when I met her, she was only 12 years old. And she was by the bedside of her mother, who was suffering from illnesses caused by HIV. And this little girl spent her time at that point in time with CDC, where NCID was, in and out all day. And one day, I took her out to the nearest supermarket at Whampoa, and I said to her, Apika, which many of you would know, I said, Apika, please pick whatever you want in the supermarket. Knowing that she's eating out from her mom's hospital tray, and she's bathing out from the bathroom, the patient's bathroom of the hospital to go to school. Instead of picking up something that she liked, she picked up something that her mother would like. And so I asked her, why? Why wouldn't you pick something that you like? She says, that's because that's what my mom would like. And that touched me as a 12-year-old young girl nursing a patient in the hospital, and that was her mother. On the way back, I asked her this question. Afika, how do you feel having to take medication all your life, but all your friends in school do not? So, after thinking, in a very short moment, she turned around, she said to me, this is my gift. These few words blew my mind because she's only a 12-year-old. She is saddled with HIV not because she's done something wrong in her present life. She's just acquired it at birth. But because she has to continue to take medication throughout her life, and she took on the medication, and she said, this illness that I had is my gift. And so that got me thinking very much, even in my daily life, what is then my gift? What is then my gift? As a colleague, as a co-worker in my career, what's the gift that I have for my children and my family, and actually this life? This is where it opened up my eyes to these 3 words, and that's called rest in peace. For many of us, whenever someone passes away, the first thing that we'll say to them, may the soul, or may this person rest in peace. I grew up saying that as well because I came from a Catholic school. So may this person rest in peace. However, after what Afika said to me, these 3 letters RIP became a different meaning to me totally. It just struck me, how will I rest in peace at my own sickbed and at my own deathbed? Resting in peace is not the person that is dead, passed away. Resting in peace is the people who are living. And how does resting in peace means to me? So to cut the story short, the RIP is my mantra, even in the corporate world. As I'm faced with any difficulties at work, be it whether it's politics or climbing up the ladder, I go back to the Dhamma and ask myself, is this part of the 8 worldly winds? If this is part of the 8 worldly winds, how would the Buddha address this wind? And that moment will allow you to just step back. And like what Brother Chong has taught in meditation, it's just come back to the presence of your breath. And coming back to the presence of the breath allows me to then kind of balance the whole sense of my head, which is always wanting to achieve. My heart is always beating that I'm alive. But the shortest distance between my head and my heart is that equal distance, and that is my breath. And if there's one thing that has helped me, it is this whole measurement of what is the shortest distance between my head and my heart. And that's a mantra in my daily life. And the last, to our young friends who are here, out in their corporate career, and particularly to Rit, I'm very, very happy to see Rit here. Honestly, very, very extremely proud of a very young man. Rit has shown me something that I've always been very inspired by. A friend who said to me, a friend who has turned his career into a hobby, or who started his career because it is his hobby. And a friend who said to me, is your career your hobby? How can you make your hobby your livelihood? And if any one of you is asking yourself, am I in the right job? You might want to ask yourself the question, is my career my hobby? Is my hobby yielding me my livelihood? And I'm very sure many of you now, like Jermaine, like Amy, as well as Rit, you step into something which is your hobby. And with that, you've been able to grow your hobby into your right livelihood. So well done and congratulations. So thank you so much.
Sadhu, Sister Vita, for the sharing. A lot of very powerful takeaways from, RIP, rest in peace, which is being able to reconcile with ourselves, being able to be okay with whatever we're doing on a day-to-day basis. No excuses, no regrets, right livelihood, which essentially, a lot of using the corporate platform as a way to drive our values, rather than see the corporate world as a way to beat our values aside and to cast them aside. I think, it's very powerful to realize that in challenges, when our values are really tried and tested, it's when we really are able to recognize what truly do we prioritize and what truly do we care about and what truly do we live for. And so on that note, would really love to hear, a story, or an incident from Brother Chong. I know that your the industry in which you work in, which is the medical field, it's a quote unquote a lot more wholesome, at least on the surface, saving lives and whatnot. Whatever happens undercurrent, we don't know. But I'm sure there have been situations where ethics and values have been tried and tested. I'm sure a lot of people here will be able to relate to it in some way and form. In situations like that, how has a Dharma teacher directly, indirectly, benefited you in those situations, giving you that clarity and that discipline emotionally and mentally that you needed to get over that little challenge?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I actually, for me to recall, I can recall many instances when I wanted to quit my job. But in the end, I never did. And because I did not go, I actually benefited from staying, you know. So I do have some younger doctor friends who are always changing their workplace or their work or the work or their occupation, and because something is not right and they're not really happy and the restlessness happen, you know, then sometimes I find myself telling them the value of the staying power, you know, and then it reminds me of certain part of our practice. In meditation, for example, you need to have some stillness before the mind can be sufficiently polished and purified, and only then you can actually start to see things as they really are, and then make better decisions. So sometimes it's important to stay, but sometimes it's important to leave. Okay, so there's a rule that I use that I learned from Ajahn Chah many years ago. He said something very, very curious. He said, "Don't trust your thoughts." Have you heard this? Do you find it like, what does he mean? You know, if you don't trust your thought, what do you trust? So so that is the mantra that I use every time I think of quitting. And I mean, many of you would know that I work in a non-profit organization. The vision mission is really, really beautiful. It's very ideal for a Buddhist. And but really, there are times that you don't agree, and there are things that it doesn't quite click. And then you have aversion, and it can become anger. Aversion can come in many forms: frustration, disappointment, grief and loss and whatnot. A lot of times affected by egos, views, attachment, you know, and then we and so on. So my current understanding of Ajahn Chah's words is that don't trust your thoughts, especially when the 5 hindrances are rife. Hindrances of attachment to sensual pleasures, aversion, of restlessness and worries, sloth and torpor, and doubt. And then, of course, in meditation practice, we know the only time when the hindrances are suppressed is when you have some kind of samadhi, either deep concentration or just some kind of temporary, shallower excess concentration. So with that, the hindrances are suppressed, and then your thoughts are really more valid, but you no longer don't trust the thinking, but it's more like a wisdom shining through that you know what to do. So that is how I handle, and because of that, I was able to stay for many years. And because of that, I was able to grow not just in career, but also as a leader, as a doctor, as a advocate, as a researcher, as a catalyst for positive change. And also through that, I made many friends. So I must say I benefited from staying put. But then again, there are times you need to stay, sometimes you need to leave. So who knows really? So really the guidance is, as I mentioned, the hindrances suppress, then the concentration is there, and then the wisdom will guide you to do what is right. So generally it's when the 5 faculties are balanced. You're neither too strained nor too lax, too trusting nor too skeptical, and then always mindful at the center. So sometimes when we find ourselves a lot of frustration or unhappiness, my own experience is usually our energy level is too tight, too strong, need to let go a little bit more. But sometimes when we find ourselves like going all over places, there's no focus, a lot of behaviors that are hints of addictive behaviors, then maybe you need to buckle up a little bit more, put in more effort and focus on what you do. So that's how I sort of navigate through my career. No hard and fast rule, but always trying to find what is the middle way here. And middle way is not the average of two extremes, but it's really avoiding the extremes. And when the mind is very still and very pure, you will see the light, because the wisdom has a light. Can't remember any stories though.
It's okay. Sorry for the Brother Chong. Yeah, so just to be conscious of time, I have one last question before we open the floor for Q&A. So, just a very quick one. A lot of people here have benefited tremendously from the retreats, from the talks, from the sharing that both of you have very generously shared and provided. What is, and I would think a lot of people here would regard both of you as, esteemed Dhamma teachers that they're very grateful for. What are some advice, as Dhamma teachers, you would wish to sort of share to the audience? Maybe something that you wish someone else would have told you when you were younger, or maybe one out of all the many advice you've gotten from your Dhamma teachers that really struck you and really impacted you. Maybe we could start with Sister Vita.
I can't hold a candle here next to Brother Wai Chong, I bow to him all the time. Right? I'm a student in his Dharma talks. So yeah, if with permission, Brother Wai Chong, I go first, okay?
No permission needed.
Okay. Well, Sister Jessica, I think humbly, I think when I spoke with Sister Amy the last time, I don't consider myself a Dharma teacher at all, and I don't think that I'm worthy to be a Dharma teacher at all. However, I strive to be a worthy daughter of the Dharma. And this is something that I've offered my practice to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And as I bow my head down, I often, give it all and said that, may I be a worthy daughter, worthy sister of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And be a light upon yourself. And for me, that's very much what that is, whereby you can be an inspiration to others, but you take your own inspiration to become your own practice and your own patipada.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to Sister Bita. Actually, I would echo that. I find it's very important for any spiritual practitioners to always remember we are all ultimately a disciple, almost eternally. I mean, like my Sally Dipankara always teaches, must always remember there's someone in front of you and somebody above you. There is always somebody above you and somebody in front. And I think that is, I mean, even for her, I feel it's like the best teacher for me around. I mean, she says that. So my learning, even if we think that we can teach, be really, really careful of assuming that role. You can always share, you can always, like for example, there was once I was giving a talk, then I went to ask Bhante Visuddhacharya from Visuddhi Meditation Center, how should I prepare myself? I mean, I've done that before, but since I was with him, I thought of asking him for counsel. He says, always reference the Buddha's teachings, refer to the Nikaya or the commentary text or the Visuddhimagga. So whatever you say, you have a reference. This is very scientific practice. I mean, Zheming is a scientist. We know when we publish something, we always cite people, because we build our knowledge on others, so we can always cite. Even if a person did not publish anything, we can always say, this is from, say, Ajahn Brahmavamso, this is from Pak Ausiador said this, I heard this, so we can do that. Of course, there are times you need to put forth your opinion. And when you do that, that's when we really need to be very careful, because if you're not careful, the ego, the views, and the attachment can come out. So what I do is, if this is my opinion, I'll say this is my opinion, so that, caveat emptor, user beware. So this is what I thought, this is what I believe, and because of this, this is how I understand this phrase to mean. So when we do that, we preserve the truth without coloring other people's perspective. So when we share the Dhamma, we need to be very careful. And even in meditation practice, you may think that you have a very good meditation practice, but you practice longer, you realize that what you experienced were actually only at the beginning. So so be really careful about sharing, but it doesn't mean we don't share. There's a Zen story, is very good, there's a monk who was hanging himself in a tree by his teeth clenching on a branch. He has a vow. He will always share the Dhamma for anyone who asks for it. And unfortunately, another young monk passing by at the street and saw him clinging to a branch for his dear life. So he asked, "Venerable, can you share with me the Dhamma?" So when he opens his mouth, he's forced to his death. But if he doesn't open his mouth, he actually doesn't keep his promise. So that is that is the idea. If you share, you have to take risk. If you don't share, it's also not correct. So we will need to do that. And at the end of the day, really, the Dhamma sharing is not your long discourse on Facebook or Twitter or somewhere. It's really your life is your communication. No matter how perfect or imperfect, even if it's imperfect, nature is like that. Okay, so there's nothing to be shy about, to hide. We're just honest, transparent, and share whatever we can, and then reference the Dhamma and all that. So like Pimo, he's a vegetarian. I really sadhu to him. I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't feel like smaller or inferior as a result of that. I just feel sadhu for him, that this was useful for him, and I feel being vegetarian is much better. Defilements lah. So that's all I have to say about this question.
Thank you, Sadhu Brother Chong, for your wisdom, insights, and Sister Vita as well.